One of the most puzzling parts of Mark's gospel is the ending, because it ends so abruptly. In our earliest manuscripts, the gospel ends in verse 8, which says that the women were terrified, were frightened, and they had heard the announcement of the resurrection, but they said nothing to anyone. That's a very strange way to end the gospel. There is a longer ending, verses 9 through 20, but it's clearly not written in Mark's style. It's different vocabulary, different style, different theology. Almost certainly Mark didn't write those last 10 or so verses, verses 9 to 20. So what happened? Well, some scholars think that last page was lost, in fact. Probably a better solution, however, is that Mark intended to end his gospel that abruptly, because the gospel itself is a call to respond. Just like the women, the readers of the gospel have heard the announcement of the resurrection. How are they going to respond to that announcement? Are they going to respond with faith or with fear? So the whole gospel becomes a call to decision.
As you gather your notes or put your Bible in front of you, I want to remind us of some facts about this. The endings that we continue to see after 16:8 were not in the earliest manuscripts. They're in later manuscripts, and one of them's in some later manuscripts. The other is in other later manuscripts, and there are some manuscripts that actually even have both. So the reason that we think it ended at 16:8, rather than with one of these two endings, the shorter ending or the longer ending of Mark, is the early manuscripts just don't have it. So I want you to think to yourself, having heard 16:8, having heard 16:1 through 8, after such a compelling story, immediately this, immediately that, immediately this, and getting to 16:8 and immediately it stops. We've been expecting that there would be something after each immediately. And so something in us leans forward like a ski jumper, right? We lean out over our skis to try to figure out what happened next. And of course, copyists who got a hold of the Gospel of Mark as it was handed on from that first community to other communities, copyists eventually who had seen the other Gospels and knew of the other resurrection stories, just couldn't help themselves trying to help Mark out, right? I don't know. Did they think that Mark had something originally there and then it got cut off in the transmission? Or did they think the Spirit is calling on me to finish Mark's story because maybe he ran out of time? We don't know what the motive of the copyists were who added these, but we probably know, the highest probability is that the ending they supply is one that their community of Christians used. Right? Now, it's very likely, or at least probable, that this comes from language that they shared in their community about Easter. That it may not be the same words, but the same tradition. That Peter ended up primarily, because remember in 16 above, in Mark's shorter version, the 16:1 through 8, we saw tell the disciples, and especially Peter, tell the disciples and Peter. So it makes sense that they would raise Peter into the middle of this and then have Jesus give what amounts to a brief commission, right? We have a commission in Matthew, and we have a commission in Acts with Jesus, the risen Jesus, telling the disciples to go and make disciples, telling the disciples to spread the news throughout the world, right? So this one is a very, I might add, very efficient capstone to Mark 16:8. It doesn't take a lot of words to say, you guys, just to reassure you, they did get to meeting up and Jesus told them to go, right? Told them go and spread the word. That is a very efficient version. The other, the longer ending of Mark, is much more fascinating, much more spicy. Let's listen to that one.